And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is my Strixhaven Retrospective. So once again, I like to go back and look at those sets after they've been out in the format for about a year and see sort of where everything is lying and see what those predictions are like. More importantly, you know, everyone, including myself, likes to make predictions about how popular those commanders are, how popular the cards are going to be, the most busted cards that are being spoiled that everyone thinks everyone is going to play. And a lot of times we are right, and sometimes we're wrong. And I've already come out with a couple of videos about cards that I was way off on and commanders that I was way off on, and going into the individual sets, I think, is a lot more accurate that way, where I can talk about them. And in particular here, Strixhaven, for me, is one of the most impactful sets in the format, I think, with regards to both commanders and the 99 cards. Of course, C21 and Strixhaven came out at the same time. I did my C21 review already last week. I thought the Strixhaven one probably I would likely spend more time on. I don't know. We'll see. I thought that would be the case, again, because I thought there was so much impactful stuff to talk about. I will say I don't love the two sets coming out at once thing. I really don't like that. Like when they did that with Ikoria, I believe was the first time they did it, and C20, I don't get it. Why? I don't know why it's too much. Like, it's already a lot. I just got some Neon Dynasty cards in the mail like last week, and I just finished doing all my new Capenna videos, and I'm like, okay, I just am getting my Neon Dynasty cards in the mail, and already I'm talking about the new set coming out, and then we have two sets coming out at once. It's just, I don't know why they do that. I don't love it. As much as a guy who's been playing Magic for a long time loves seeing new cards, it really does get overwhelming, to be honest. And even as a content creator, having lots of content to talk about is great, but even at that, I feel like it's too much. So I think they might only be doing themselves a disservice by coming out with so many cards, because a lot of stuff gets overshadowed, as we will see, right? I think there's a lot of cards when you go back and look at these sets, you're like, oh yeah, that card, I almost forgot about that, right? Because stuff gets overshadowed really, really quickly by coming out with things too fast. Enough of the tangent though. Let's get to the actual set. And of course, I'm going to use EDH Rec as usual. And here it is. And if you are unfamiliar with EDH Rec, it's the best, I find, database for looking at commander statistics. I will put the link in the description below. If you haven't, you can go check it out. And as before with C21, I actually have my list here in my little black book. I went back and looked at my rankings, because I actually ranked, you know, I don't love ranking commanders. I know a lot of other people do it, and I tried doing it with these sets because there was so much to talk about that I thought it would be difficult to actually do a top 10. I did the same thing with Neon Dynasty. I tried doing it again. I didn't love it because it's really tough to figure out. I actually used a metric where I had, because I don't like to just go, hey, here's my favorite, here's my completely subjective opinion, because that's not very helpful. I based it off of fun and uniqueness, and you know, like a commander that is very unique, people are going to go after because it is doing something that nothing's ever done before. And also you want something that's kind of fun, something that's not really, you know, oppressive. Commanders can be, I mean, a lot of people will play them because they win, but at the same time, they also are super unfun. So people will avoid them for that reason. So, I'm already shocked. Okay. And I think a lot of people are as well. So I had Extus at number 1. It's now number 2, and Dyna Soul Steeper is number 1. That I did not see coming. I knew there was the combo potential for sure, and obviously, what is it? Exquisite Blood is the infinite combo, right? Because Exquisite Blood is whenever your opponents lose life, you gain life. So you will gain life. Each opponent will lose 1 life, and then when they lose that life, you gain the life, and then infinite loop, and you win. Is that the reason why she's so popular? I did not see this coming. Extus actually was the most popular one. I had it right. I thought, okay, it's unique, it's interesting. And the interesting thing about this, I just did a deck doctor for one of my patrons who did an Extus deck, and they actually did the front side. And again, when I saw Extus for the first time, I built around the backside because I thought I'm like, okay, the backside seems really interesting. You have like a sorcery as your commander, and I didn't think people would go that route, but apparently that's what everyone did. Apparently, you know, I had comments on that video where people were like, oh, I wish you would have built around the front because everyone built around the back. I was like, oh, okay. I assumed people would have been building around the front. My patron actually built like a Blood Rush channel, like creatures that you can use their ability, like cycling, right? You use their abilities, and then you can get them back with your commander's ability. Really interesting deck. But as I said there, and as I said before, the weird thing about the MDFC commanders, and we'll get to more of them, is in Strixhaven, is the front and the back have nothing to do with each other. They don't. You're gonna build your deck around the front or the back. It's almost like having two completely different commanders. It's like having not partner commanders. That's a bad example, but yeah, if you build a Awaken the Blood Avatar deck, it's going to be completely different than an Exodus deck. Completely different. I don't know, and even if you found some synergy there, like maybe the synergy is I sacrifice creatures to my Awaken the Blood Avatar and then I can get them back later with Exodus, but then you would have to get your Exodus out of the graveyard or I guess out of the command zone, cast it again. That just seems like not a great game plan. A lot of the other ones, which I'll get to, are even worse. There isn't a lot of synergy, whereas in Kaldheim, where they first did the MDFC commander thing, the back and the front really played into each other. And in fact, they had a lot of them that would return to hand, so you could play the front side. So that's very interesting. But yeah, Dinah, I had Dinah at 8. I thought it was a great commander, but number 1? That's surprising. I mean, Golgari Colors might play into it a little bit. Exodus I had at number 1. I had Jadzi at number 2. And again, I had this already on my commanders I was wrong about, I think, video, where I just like, this seems busted and so good. And I mean, 805 decks is pretty good, but I thought this would be at like way up here, maybe number 1 or 2. If this had been number 1 from the set, I would not have been surprised at all. The fact that it is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow. Yeah, I thought it would be. And it has been a year. Time will tell. Like I said, with Dinah, after like the first 6 months, she was probably 8, right where I said she would be. Exodus was number 1, and I don't know what happened. I have not looked at this list in a long time. I usually regularly look at this stuff and I'm just like, what happened? Like just an explosion of popularity. I mean, it's an uncommon commander too, which is that's shocking. Cody next. And again, Cody was one that I was like, oh, another 5. Like I just sort of had like PTSD from Golos. I'm like an artifact commander that's a 5-color command. I just didn't like that. But you can't cast permanent spells is so restricting. And I think there's a lot of unique, interesting ways you can go with it. So for that reason, I actually came around to liking it a lot more. It's quite a bit more. It's even more popular than I thought. Oh, I had it at number 3. Never mind. I was bang on there. I rated it really high though because of its uniqueness. I had it as a 10. 10 out of 10 for uniqueness for obvious reasons. There's nothing else like it. It's a book, for crying out loud. You have a book as your commander. So I thought it was incredibly unique. But I didn't think the power level was super high because you can't cast permanent spells. That's incredibly restricting. And I like that. I really like that they put that in there. So, if you're going to have really, powerful abilities like that, I like that they put restrictions like the trigger only once each turn. Like I've said before, I like when they do that kind of stuff because it makes it so that you're not going to get completely out of hand. And then you're going to just have everyone complaining about the commander. And then it's going to see less play, right? Galazath Prismari. I had this a lot lower. I had this at 13. And the reason I had it at 13 is because I thought, it's kind of boring. Like we already have treasure token commanders. We already have lots of artifact tribal commanders, right? This is artifacts you control have tapped to add. Basically, it turns your artifacts into treasure tokens. And you can only use it to cast instant or sorcery spells. So I thought, okay, well, you're in a Spellslinger deck, which is tons of Izzet decks that do that. There's already lots of artifact decks, like Joyra being the main one, that are doing artifact themes. So I thought there's just so much overlap. I just didn't think it was going to be popular at all. The power level's pretty good, but I had, for the uniqueness, I didn't have very high at all because I thought lots of treasure token, lots of artifact themes, instant and sorcery. It's just doing a whole lot of the same stuff, but I guess it is doing it in a very unique way, sort of, right? Beledros, number 5, and that's what I had, number 5. I'm pretty good. I was pretty close with the C21 commanders. I'm probably even more bang on with the Strixhaven ones, which is interesting. Beledros, again, I just thought powerful ability. I thought a lot of people would go after that one for sure. So that one doesn't surprise me at all. Over 2,000 decks is pretty good. Do I have 2 patrons with Beledros decks? I think I do. Yep. Killian Ink Duelist is higher than I thought it would be. I had it at 10. It's at 6. And yeah, again, this is one that because it's so open-ended, spells you cast that target a creature cost 2 less to cast. There's just so many ways you can go with that, right? And I was thinking auras. I mean, obviously removal works great on your opponent's creatures, but because it works on your opponent's creatures and yours, a lot of ways you can, again, uncommon commander, very popular, which is odd. Shadrick Silverquill coming in at number 7, which I had at 6. So again, pretty close. I knew that would be a popular one. Hoffrey is one that I had a lot higher at number 4. I had Hoffrey and I thought this was going to be one of the most popular Boros commanders because again, I thought there was so much you could do here. This is such a unique, interesting ability. First of all, spirits you control have +1/+1 trample and haste. And that on its own, if you just ignore the second ability, you can make a really awesome, like +1/+1 trample and haste. That is a fantastic Lord effect. So just Boros spirits, that there's got to be a bunch of people out there that have that without even looking at the second ability. And the second ability is also very build aroundable. Now, obviously, it's going to turn your creatures into spirits, which then benefit from the first ability. So I just thought this was such a fantastic commander. You can go to a lot of different ways with it. I did a deck for this that was an artifact creatures, because I thought artifact creatures were kind of neat here because red does artifact recursion really, really well. Because I really like the fact that when that creature dies, when the copy dies, the original that's in exile goes back into the graveyard. So I thought, why not take advantage of that? That's an advantage, that it goes back into your graveyard and you can use it again. And I believe they've actually errated this card too, because I pointed out, someone commented on one of my videos, hey, what if you steal someone's thing? Because the wording is, when this creature leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to your graveyard, which it should be to its owner's graveyard, and I'm quite sure it's been errated. They had a couple mistakes in here. Obviously, the big one being in C21 with Zaffi, Thunder Collector / Thunder Conductor. So I don't know if maybe because there was so much going on, they were just rushing to get all of this done. So another reason why they shouldn't be doing 2 sets at once, maybe. Anyway, so Hoffrey I thought would be, and you know what? I'm going to check really quick for Boros Commanders. I thought that Hoffrey would be, Feather, Oscar, Hoffrey. Maybe Wynota. I thought Hoffrey would be top 4, and I don't know what it is. Let's go check out real quick. So, yeah, Rogue Rack Arden. I already talked about this biggest commander. Like, what? That's shocking. Although, I will say, because you see they have 2 here, and someone said that maybe there's like an algorithm mistake here where they are combining the accounts for Arden and Rogue Rack. So it's like, this should be like half. So maybe this is not accurate. I don't know. Nevertheless, pretty shocking how popular this one is. You got Oscar, you got Feather. I mean, Oscar I knew would be popular. I didn't know it would be I didn't think it would beat out Feather, and then Wynota, and then Wyleth, Akiri, DePaula. Oh boy, it's way down there. Even Alibu is more popular. Look at that, way down there. 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Zabaz, the Glimmer Wasp, is almost as popular as Hoffrey. So, yeah, that's another one that I would have to say I was wrong about, because I thought it would be way more popular. Way more popular. I mean, Zerta, too, for that matter. And General Ferris. I'm going on off a bit of a tangent here, but I didn't think General Ferris would be that popular. That's why I did the deck tech on my videos. So, anyway, but getting back to it. Speaking of Boros Commanders, we got Velamakkus Lorehold. And again, I think I'm pretty close. I had it 7. People really, and I was playing into this a little bit. People really like the idea of casting stuff for free. They just love it. And this is what this does. Even though it is a 7-mana commander, you do get to use the ability right away because it has haste, so that's good. No surprises, right? The fact that it's at 10 rather than 7, no surprises. I mean, I'm pretty bang on with most of them, again, except for these 2. I guess Dinah I didn't think would be that popular. Hoffrey I thought would be more popular, and same with Jadzi. I mean, come on, who's not surprised by Jadzi being that? Like, the only thing I can think, because everyone was losing their mind about Jadzi when it first came out and how it was busted, and they got to stop making commanders like this. And I think maybe that's why people have avoided it. Again, I am of the opinion that now we've reached a place where when busted commanders come out like this, a lot of people will just avoid it because they don't want to deal with the headache of being like the archenemy and whatnot, and being that guy, right? That guy that plays that deck. They don't want to be that. So maybe that plays into it a little bit, which is probably a good thing, right? Quintorius. And again, another uncommon commander that I had quite a bit lower. I had it 14, so I guess not too bad. It's at 11. And I actually did this on my Underwhelming Commanders video, and I probably shouldn't have, right? I'm a little more diligent now when I check when people ask for certain commanders. 653 is pretty good. That's the mid-range. For me, that's the mid-range. Like, for me, a command now, it's a lot different now. It used to be any commander over 1,000 decks would be a really popular commander in the format. I've never played against a Hoffrey deck. So yeah, that's not the case anymore because the format is a lot more popular. Now you have to get up to 2,000, right? So anyone who's not familiar with this and the numbers don't mean much to you, in the 2000s is now a popular, what I would consider to be a popular commander that you're going to see from time to time, maybe even regularly. Obviously, if you get up to like 4,000 or 5,000, that becomes the really popular commanders that you're going to see all the time. Between 500 to 2,000, right? So this row and probably, Quintorius and maybe Tanorex, those are the commanders that you're going to see from time to time. You're not going to see them a lot, but you are going to see them from time to time. I mean, obviously it changes. Like Killian's 1,700, Quintorius is 653. That's kind of a big gap, but I still think that Quintorius is probably a little too popular, that he shouldn't have been on my Underwhelming Commanders video, and also not that underwhelming. I think there's a lot you can do there. Tanazir, I thought was pretty boring. I actually got I got into it in the comments section when I talked about this guy, because I'm like, I think he's really boring. And then some guy's like, how dare you? That might be someone's favorite commander. That's great. That's great if you, congratulations, you just found your favorite commander. I don't think it is. I think it's boring. I rated it at 17 because for me, I'm like, Simic +1/+1 counters has been done to death. I don't like, that's so not interesting for me. Again, it's doing it in a little bit a different way, but 500 is not bad. It's probably more popular than I thought it would be. I would say it's around where I thought it would be, maybe a little more popular, but about where I thought it would be. I had it lower though, because again, I wasn't ranking entirely based on popularity. I was basing on uniqueness, fun, and I just thought it doesn't seem like it's very unique or fun. That's just my opinion. Myla and Luca, and again, another MDFC combination that is like, you're either building around the front or you're building around the back. There's just no way you're doing both. And I thought, like, having a Planeswalker as a commander, I thought people would go after that. So I'm surprised this isn't a little more popular, even though it is only Boros. Myla is the one that I was like, man, you could make a really good Boros Planeswalker, Boros Super Friends deck with Myla, because both, like, whenever an opponent attacks one or more of your Planeswalker, put a loyalty counter on each Planeswalker you control. That's fantastic. It just keeps your Planeswalkers from getting killed. And then if you even have like fog effects, now you're just gaining those counters, right? Whenever permanent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. So now if they try to, Anguished Unmaking or Assassin's Trophy your Planeswalkers, you get to draw a card. That just seems like I don't like Planeswalkers, or I would totally do that. 496, so that's not bad. That's not bad. Where did I have Myla? 16. So I actually had it lower. Where am I at here? 10, 11, 12, 13. So a little bit lower, but basically around the same. This one, I'm going to just check because I'm pretty sure I'm way off here. Yeah, Plarg I had at 18 because I just thought this, like Plarg I didn't like at all. The front I didn't like at all. And again, keep in mind we have a pretty steep drop off here, right? The actual ranking does not necessarily... Like if you look at Killian, 17, and then we're down all the way down to less than 7. That's a big drop off, right? Going down one row. And then now we're below 500, and then we have another big drop down to 323. So now we're getting into the commanders that you're just probably never going to see. Like unless you just happen to have a guy that that has that deck, you're never going to see them. I had a patron that had a Plarg deck briefly. I have a patron with the Blex deck as well. So, I will say though, my patrons, when we play on our Discord, my patrons tend to have more Underwhelming Commander decks, obviously, because that's why they've gravitated towards my Patreon, because they like playing those decks. And that's a good place to do it, by the way. So, Plarg I had at 18, though. Yeah. It's at 14. So, again, I'm not way off, but yeah, I like the Augusta side. I thought whenever you attack, untap each creature you control, then tap any number of creatures you control. I thought there was a few interesting things you could do there. That was even a commander that I thought tackling myself. At the time, I had 2 Boros decks already, and I was way more interested in Hoffrey than to tackle this one. Might revisit it. We'll see. Blex, again, 300 decks. Yeah. Now again, it's a steep drop off now. So the numbers matter a lot less. Like the ranking, I should say, matter a lot less. I had Blex at 20. I'm like, man, I didn't think anyone was going to be interested in this. Pests, bats, insects, snakes, and spiders. Tribal is like, that's okay. Yeah. I mean, if you want to make those tribes and it's in black, again, I find like this is one of the worst culprits where I just find the back and the front have absolutely nothing to do with each other other than the fact that Blex dying gains you 4 life, which again seems like a weird stapled on ability that has nothing to do with anything. But then the backside, you're losing life. So that my guess is they put the life gain on there just so that there was at least a little bit of synergy with the backside, because there seems like there's none at all. Like 0, right? I have a patron with this deck that only uses the search for Blex side just to get, because it's a graveyard deck. It's basically a dredge deck. So that's interesting. And then we get down to Zamon, which I had dead last. And, 297 is almost nothing. That's not a lot. Again, you're rarely going to see a Zamon deck. But again, for me, it wasn't about popularity necessarily. I was like, okay, there's 0 uniqueness here. And I mean, I know people will say it's a little bit different, but it's a Simic lands deck. You're doing lands, you're drawing cards. There's almost, it's a little bit different because you're tapping your commander. That's it. This is just like Tattoo over Icy, which of course both are way more popular. It just seemed like a waste of space to me to put this as a commander. And sorry to anyone out there that has a Zamon deck and really likes it. Maybe you want to play a Simic Lands Matters deck and you don't want to use the popular commanders. You want to use a more underwhelming one. So great if that's the case. Mavinda, I had a little bit higher. Okay, I had it at 11. And I knew it wasn't going to be popular, okay? I did a deck tech for this on my channel as well. And I knew it wasn't going to be popular, but it is unique. You have to admit that ability is incredibly unique. Not only in white, it's incredibly unique to be doing an instant and sorcery theme in white, but that ability on its own, everything about it is incredibly unique. Casting stuff from your graveyard, your commander has a 0 activated ability, which I believe is the only commander that has that. If it doesn't target a creature you control, it costs 8 more. Like everything about that is super, super unique. And I had a Mavinda deck briefly and it just wasn't great. And I was like, oh, and I sort of went back to the drawing board and never revisited it. I still want to though. I just think that is such a unique ability and I like it a lot, especially for a mono white commander. Not at all shocked how unpopular it is though. Rutha, I am shocked how unpopular this is. And again, I've brought this up on my channel so many times. And again, most recently in the commanders I was wrong about. Or maybe it was the commanders that I can't believe how unpopular they are, or maybe both, because I'm still shocked and people are like, oh, 5 mana to copy a spell is terrible. Yeah, but it's repeatable, right? You can't expect to play like first of all, Fork is a busted card in the history of the game. It's considered to be a really, really powerful card. Paying 2 mana to copy any spell is considered really, really good. Right. So saying that 2 mana is the going rate that's not the going rate. That's really good. But it's also repeatable. Think of it as buyback. In fact, what's the buyback? Reiterate? Is that what it is? The buyback. I'm going to look it up. Let's look it up, guys. Yeah. Reiterate is 6 mana. It's 3. And then the buyback is 3. So that's 6 mana to repeatedly copy a spell. This is 5 mana to repeatedly copy. So, right? That's the direct comparison there. And the fact that it's stapled on a creature, in my opinion, is even better. I mean, I guess you can make the argument that it's worse because then your commander's open for removal. But then you can also get into shenanigans with like an Aether Vial where you can put it into play for free. So I don't know. I think 5 mana to repeatedly copy an instant or sorcery spell is great. And you're going to be copying spells that cost lots of mana. That's how you don't copy a lightning bolt with your Rutha. You copy and expropriate with your Rutha or something like that, right? And you don't have to. And again, I'm going to have a video, by the way, coming up about phrases that drive me crazy. This is not 5 mana to copy a spell, guys. This is 2 mana to copy a spell. You pay 3 and then you pay the 2 later. So when I copy my expropriate, I don't have to pay 14 mana or 13 mana. What is it? 9 plus 5. So yeah, I don't have to pay 14 mana. I only have to pay 11 because I paid the 3 before. It makes a difference. Saying 5 mana to copy, that's being disingenuous. It's not 5 mana, it's 2. And 2 mana to copy a spell is really, really good. I mean, it's definitely good, right? So Anyway, I'm done flogging this horse. I've now done I'm doing my Strixhaven retrospective, so now I can let it off with the Rutha. Still shocked that it's not more popular. Again, I had it at 9 on my list. The fact that it's way at the bottom is shocking. Nisara and Uvilda, not surprising at all what's going on here. Uvilda is just a way worse Joyra. I don't know how many people actually build around that. Again, the only thing I can think here is that someone who wants to have a Joyra deck but doesn't want to have the garner the attention, become an archenemy, could do it around Uvilda, right? Which is a way less powerful version, obviously, and you can only do it with instant sorceries. So yeah, way less powerful. And the Nasari side I thought was the interesting one. So where did I have them? I had them at 15. So pretty close. And I thought this side a lot of people would build around, and I imagine that is what people are doing. These 246 decks are mostly around the Nasari side, I think, likely because it's Exile Tribal. Now, obviously, because they started doing the Exile Tribal stuff a lot more right after this, I don't think Nasari ever picked up any steam. Obviously, Prosper being the best example of just completely crushing Nasari in the stats, because it's doing it in a lot better way. I mean, it's different, but I think it's probably a lot better, right? Lisette and Valentin had these guys at 19. So again, I think that was pretty bang on. Hey, like, I mean, the bottom row is pretty much what again, other than Rutha, I had Mavinda a lot higher because I thought it was really unique, but it doesn't surprise me at all where it is. Rutha's the only surprise, right? I knew all these MDFC commanders would be at the bottom, right? So again, we have Shale and Ambrose, which again is another commander that I'm shocked how unpopular it is because I think it's pretty good. 90 is like nothing. That's so nothing. Nothing. That's 90. That's nothing. Because you have a commander that draws a card. That's pretty good. White and black are popular colors. So I did have them a little higher. I had them at 12. Still, I didn't think they'd be super popular, but I didn't think they'd be way at the bottom. Kian and Ibrahim are, I had second from the bottom. So at 21. So, but yeah, the fact that these MDFC commanders are at the bottom, and somebody said this when I talked about Shale and Ambrose about how because of the MDFC thing and having more options, that makes them less popular. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And maybe that's the way people see it. People look at these cards and they go, oh, well, I can't build around both sides, so I'm just not going to build it. Just pick one side, right? Any of these. Just pick the Lisette side and go, hey, I'm going to make this is a Golgari life gain deck. You're just, instead of using Dinah, which apparently everybody does, you can use Lisette. Right? And if you don't want to play a really popular commander, here's an option for you. Whenever you gain, just pretend the Valentin side doesn't exist, even though you can later in the game play it. If you have someone who has a graveyard deck or something, it could be handy. So it is handy to have that other option, but you just build your entire deck around the set. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain. That's pretty good. Seems pretty good to me. I think the Valentine side is also good because that ability, if a non-token creature an opponent controls would die exile instead, is fantastic. Also, you can make tokens too. So, I mean, it's not super powerful, but, you know, same with these, any of these. Anyway, like Ambrose and Shale, I would never touch the Shale side. I think the Ambrose side is way better and way more interesting. Pretend the Shale side doesn't exist. And then these guys, like, these are just bad. This is why I had them so low, because I'm just like, neither side seems very good to me. Put the study counter on each of them. Then you may, this is the one where the front and the back do kind of play into each other, and maybe you do want to play one side and then the other. So there is that. Not great, though. Create an 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put a +1 counter on it for each different mana value among non-land cards you own in exile with study counters on them. They should have just put non-land cards you own in exile. Would that have been too good, though? Let me think. Because then you could just exile your whole library with something. And then Paradigm Shift, right? Paradigm Shift does that, exiles your library and shuffles your, yeah. Maybe that would have been too good because then you could just, but still, it's 5 mana. You create this huge vanilla creature. Yeah. If it's a land card, put it in your hand. Otherwise, put a, because yeah, this is the one where you do actually have to almost play both sides, which of course makes it really difficult. So not a lot of shock there. Again, Ambrose, Rutha. No, that's not a surprise for me. Rutha for sure, and then Hoffrey I thought would be a little more popular, and Jadzi. Everything else pretty much makes sense to me. So, getting to the 99 cards, and Fracture I had on my list. I think I only had it as an honorable mention because I was like, it's good. 2 mana, destroy an artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker, but it's not like really good. And black and white have such great removal already. I'm actually surprised how popular this is. I thought it was good. I actually saw other channels talking about how it's terrible. It's definitely not. Having the artifact and enchantment is always going to be... I mean, I know a disenchant will just destroy an artifact or enchantment. Sure. But if you're in a black and white deck, why not have this? And then you can also destroy planeswalkers. Disenchant is not an unplayable card in the format, in my opinion. I think it's still playable. This is an even better disenchant. However, 23,000 decks? Really? Wow. Considering how much great removal Orzhov has, and even better now. I mean, you got D-Spark, you got Vanishing Verse, which was also in this set. That's why I only gave this an honorable mention, because I thought, well, geez, Vanishing Verse is even better. So I got to mention that, right? And I don't even see, where's Vanishing Verse? Like, what? What's going on here? There it is. What is happening? Okay, this has got to be the biggest shock for me. Price is always an issue. I will say that. But 8,000 decks for Vanishing Verse. 23,000 for Fracture. Wow. Okay. That's shocking. That's pretty shocking. I wonder what the explanation is there. Other than cost, this is a $3 card, it looks like. And this is a dollar. I mean, this is $1.20. Wow. That's shocking. Yep. That's a big shocker. I did not expect that at all. Yeah, Vanishing Verse is just straight up better than Fracture, in my opinion. Yeah, it only hits monocolored stuff, but all the best cards, like, you just think about all the best cards in the format, like Dockside Extortionist, Rhystic Study, Smothering Tithe. Like, there's so many phenomenal targets there. I guess it probably won't hit most people's commanders, but so what? Culling Ritual, again, had that on my list, and again, it's phenomenal. I'm not surprised at all. It's in that many decks. It can be a little like when I first came across this card, I was like, oh, I don't want to play it so bad. And I was like, I wanted to put it in both my Golgari decks, but I'm like, my Eureka deck makes lots of tokens and stuff, and it's just not a good fit there. So I didn't put it in that one. In my Name is One deck, though, it's great. It is a really good card. I'm not shocked at all how popular it is. Stormkiln Arnis, though, there's a shocking one for me, and I didn't mention this at all in my Strixhaven review. And I guess the reason for me was I just thought the first ability and the second ability just were like, okay, you're going to want to put this in a deck where you have lots of artifacts maybe, but you don't. You ignore the first ability. The second ability is going to make treasure tokens, which in turn will make your Stormkiln Arnis bigger, but everyone's playing this for the first ability or for the second ability, and 40,000 decks, that's a lot. This is way more popular than I thought it would be, and even after I sort of corrected myself, and I think I mentioned this in my cards from the year, my year-end cards that I thought, here's some cards that I missed. This is one that I did miss. It is a really good card. It's still more popular than I think it should be. I don't have this in any decks. I think that, again, everyone is so on about treasure tokens, and I don't know if it's necessarily warranted. Yeah, you can go off here where you cast something, get a treasure token, then cast Storm off maybe. Okay, in those decks it's probably great. In your average red deck, like I have a Browlin, mono red Browlin deck. It's a discard theme. This is not going in there. No way. No way am I going to take out something more synergistic just to put in something that might give me some treasure tokens once in a while. So I don't know. I think this might be in too many decks, maybe. I don't know. These lands, man. Whenever there's a battlefield, you may reveal an island. Or these are not great. The cycle of lands here, I'm actually surprised how popular it is, because I just think there's way better. Like the temples. The scrying temples, I think, are way better than these, in my opinion. Even though they always come into play tapped, I like the scry. I never have put in these in a deck ever. I don't love them, so I'm a little surprised how popular they are. Archmage Emeritus. I think I gave this a honorable mention on my list because I'm like, well, it's pretty specific. It's good for sure, but it's only going to go in Spellslinger decks, right? I don't know if people are putting this in other decks. Blue's pretty decent at drawing cards already, so I don't know if you need to just shoehorn this into your blue decks just for extra card draw. I think I haven't put this in a deck at all, not one. I think you would only put it in a Spellslinger deck, right, where you're casting lots of instant sorcery spells, so it's worth it. Solve the Equation, of course, another card. I believe I had this number 2 on my list. That number is only going to go up. 35,000, that number is going to go up. Because it's at no point is there going to be people who don't want to search their library for instants and sorceries. Again, you don't have to be in a Spill Slinger deck for this one. It's just I go search for a board wipe so I can clean up the board, or I go search for anything. You know, I can go search for another tutor if I want to, right? I go search for my vampire tutor so I can use that to search for something else. It's just an absolute staple in the format for a long, long time, as I mentioned when I talked about it in the video. All right. Prismary Command, there's a big shocker. I just did not. And funny, the first video I did, I actually almost forgot about this. The first video I did from Strixhaven was I talked about, they spoiled the commands, the 2-color commands, just to show everyone what the schools were all about. And I thought, I'll do a video about them. And I mostly did a video about them because I just thought they were all not very good. Probably great in limited, good in standard, maybe mod. Like Prismary Command to me looks like it's really good in modern. I would for sure play it in that format. It's very similar to a Kolaghan's Command, obviously, which is a card that again is really good in modern, and nobody plays it in Commander, right? Like who plays Kolaghan's Command in Commander? I don't. Maybe I've seen it once. This seems very similar to me. Deal 2 damage to any target, which is okay. It's not going to kill much. Draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. So you're not even gaining any cards there. That's just looting. And again, there are some decks that want to be doing that. I mean, I guess it's okay because you can get rid of, I guess you can target your opponent too, which you might want to do sometimes. Target player creates a treasure token. That is so minimal. Destroy target artifact. So I think probably you're going to be dealing 2 damage and destroying an artifact. For 3 mana, I mean, how often are you going to be creating a treasure token? Like never. That option there might as well not even be an option. I like modal stuff. I really do. I think there's probably some decks this fits in. 12,000 decks though. Man, that's a lot. I'm surprised how popular this is for sure. We got Beledros, which is apparently going in lots of decks. So by the way, for those who don't know how this works, this means Beledros is in 11,781 decks where it's not the commander. So this is, you have all the Beledros decks, and then you have 11,700 other decks where Beledros is in the 99. So, and I guess this fits with a lot of, I mean, if you're in the life gain theme, I guess maybe the Dyna deck would want this because you can pay 10 life. It's just a free untap because you got lots of life anyway. Any token theme in Golgari, which probably there's a lot, would want this as well. It's spitting out those tokens like crazy, so it does fit in a lot of decks. Double Major. I don't know if I mentioned this card or not. I was like, it's okay. Like, copy target creature spell you control, except it isn't legendary if the spell is legendary. So a lot of people are using this to copy their commander, I would imagine. However, like, and I've thought about this in the past, but I was like, it's 2 extra mana, so you have to wait 2 extra turns to cast your commander, which doesn't seem great. Like, if your commander costs 4, okay, turn 4 I can play it, but I have a double major in my hand and I want to use it. So now I got to wait 2 more turns. And I guess if you're in Simic, that's not so bad. You can speed up the process, but still, you have to wait another turn or 2 more turns even before you can do your command. So it kind of slows you down. Maybe it's worth the payoff in the end, especially if there's a specific commander where this works really well. I mean, I guess if you had a Tatyova and you got double the Tatyovas out, you would gain double the life and draw double the cards, and that's pretty good. Is it worth the extra turns that you're waiting? Maybe, probably. If someone casts a board wipe right away, that's a pretty feel-bad moment when you just wait to get that double major on your commander and then someone just immediately casts a board wipes and you lose 2 of them. That sucks. Again, it's not a card I've ever played, but it definitely, I would imagine that's where most people are using it. Rip Apart, one of my favorite removal spells from the set. One of my favorite removal spells in the entire format, actually. I love it. It's an auto-include in a Boros deck, in my opinion. If I'm playing a 3-color deck, I will probably also almost assuredly put it in there. I'm trying, like, if I'm playing a Naya deck or a Mardu deck, I mean, even Mardu, that where it has super good removal in Mardu, because you have all the black and white stuff, you also have all the red and black stuff. I would still play. You also have Crackling Doom. I probably would still put it in there. It's fantastic. I know people don't like the sorcery speed, but I really think that a lot of your removal is typically cast at sorcery speed anyway. That's what I find. I find that most people cast like their Swords to Plowshares at sorcery speed anyway, so it doesn't really matter. This is, for the most part, kill a creature, a planeswalker, an artifact, or an enchantment, which is incredible. Like in Commander, and I know I'm going back on what I said about Prismary Command, but Prismary Command is like, when we're just talking about removal, versatility is so important. This is sort of removal. It, like, 2 damage, and by the way, 2 damage and 3 damage, big difference, right? There is a lot of creatures that die to 3 damage that won't die to 2 damage. A lot of commanders. I know it doesn't seem like much, but it really is. If you actually did a search to see how many commanders have 3 toughness, there's a lot. And this only destroys an artifact, which is good, but I would take Rip Apart over Prismary Command any day of the week, assuming they were the same color, any day of the week, because I just like the versatility in my removal particularly, because there's so how many times are you sitting there holding a spell that, I can get a creature off the table, no problem, but my opponent has a Ristic Study that I really want to get rid of. And this will get rid of almost all of the really problematic things in the format. There's not, other than big creatures, that's the only thing this is not going to hit, right? So Planeswalkers, yeah, right? That's really the only thing that's not going to hit, which I love. Resculpt, of course, entirely because it kills artifacts, right? You gotta. If you're in a mono blue deck, right? This is in 24,000 decks. Now, 7% is not a lot, right? It's only in 7% of 368,000 decks. Again, for those who aren't aware of how it works, a 5-color deck is a deck that Resculpt can go into, but nobody's going to play a Resculpt in a 5-color deck, I don't think, right? You just have access to way better removal. Again, if you're in a Esper deck, you're not going to play Resculpt. You can, it could be in that deck, but you're not going to do it because you have access to way better removal. So there's no reason to. Like killing artifacts and creatures is going to be really easy in an Esper deck. So there's no reason to play a Resculpt. You're only going to play it in a Dimir deck. I mean, mono blue for sure, right? I would imagine the majority of these 24,000 decks are mono blue, and then also a Dimir deck I would probably play it. That's probably it. Yeah, because everything else is going to deal with artifacts really well. And giving your opponent a 4/4 creatures, that's pretty big, right? However, if you're in a deck that doesn't deal with artifacts, like a mono blue deck, I have 2 mono blue decks, that's in both of them. You have to, because not being able to deal with artifacts really, really stinks. Getting down to this row, and again, I'm shocked how low Vanishing Verse is. Holy man. Now it's getting to the point where I don't even recognize some of these cards, like Expressive Iteration. What is that? Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them in your hand. Put one of them on the bottom. You may play the exiled card this turn. That doesn't seem great. I mean, top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand. One of them on the bottom of your library. And exile. Okay, so it's essentially draw 2, kind of. I guess that's not bad. So you're looking at the top 3 cards and you're picking one to put in your hand, one to put on the bottom of your library, and you're exiling the other one, which you can play. Yeah, that's not bad. That's pretty good. Yep. Because if you exile a land, then you can exile. If you find a land in the 3, you can exile the land and then play the land, and then you tuck something useless on the bottom of your library and you put something good in your hand. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's definitely one that flew under the radar for me. Reconstruct History, of course, I had in my list as well. 10,000 decks, pretty good. I mean, it's just great. Like I said in that video, I think if you even just get 2 things off of this, that's worth it. 4 mana, get back an enchantment and a sorcery from your graveyard. In Boros colors, that's really good. Really good. You would be surprised. Non-blue cards, getting instants and sorceries out of your graveyard is really tough. Really tough if you're not in blue. And this is, like, even if you're in a Mardu deck, this is great. Right? And again, I know people say, oh, you have black. Even black, right? This is why I talked about Shrouded Lore in my last 10 cards video, because even black can't get instant and sorceries out of graveyards, right? Getting enchantments, that's actually quite rare. I mean, white can get enchantments, but being able to get all of those things on one card is fantastic. You don't have to get all of them in order for it to be worth it. You only have to get, in my opinion, 2 is plenty. And just being able to do that, right? That's why I think that card is so good. Plum the Forbidden, I love, and I don't think I mentioned this on my 10 and my top cards from the set, but it definitely is a fantastic, if you're in that theme of, sacrificing your own creatures. If you're in any theme where you're just creating lots of tokens in any deck, this card can be good, because at instant speed, you can just sack your entire team if there's a board wipe coming. Someone's about to board wipe, 2 mana. I sack my whole team and draw a ton of cards, and you minimum get 1 card. This is 1 plus the number of creatures you sacrifice, right? So you're going to get, even if you just cast this and don't sacrifice any creatures, it still replaces itself. So that's good. Morality Spear, obviously, again, I didn't mention this card because it's just super specific. Morality Spear only goes in life gain decks, I think. I guess if you just put it in a non-life gain deck, it's 4 mana, destroy target non-land permanent instant speed, which is okay. In a life gain deck, it's way better, but in a 4 mana to destroy, like, that's not great. And Golgari Colors has lots of great removal. I don't know, are people doing that? 9,400 decks is quite a bit. So are people putting this in just a regular Golgari deck because they can't afford an Assassin's Trophy, or they can't afford, you know, I mean, you got Maelstrom Pulse, which is great, which I guess is sorcery speed. Putrefy. Is this better than a Putrefy? Yeah, maybe it is, right? Would I pay the 1 extra mana to be able to destroy any non-land permanent? You could definitely make that argument. Definitely, yeah. I think the life gain thing might scare people away, which is what happened with me. Eureka Moment, another card that I have no idea what it does. 4 mana instant, draw 2 cards. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Again, this is like Growth Spiral, which is a card that I think is horribly overplayed in the format. It's so low impact. This costs more mana and is a little more because you're drawing 2 cards and you may put a land card from your hand on the battlefield. But let's pretend you're not putting the land. Let's say you don't have a land to put into play. You just paid 4 mana to draw 2 cards. That's terrible, right? Like, I just, no, this is just like Growth Spiral. I think it should not be played at all unless you're in a really heavy lands deck. Like, if you're in a Tattoo of a deck, okay. But you draw 2 cards, and I think what a lot of people think is they're going to draw 2 cards and one of them will be a land, so they can put it directly into play. So it's a card draw and ramp all in one. But how many times, like, if you're using this card, if you're one of the 8,600 people or whatever, probably more than that, using this card, just think to yourself, how many times do I cast this? And yeah, it's an instant, sure. 4 mana though. So now you got to hold up 4 mana, right? How often are you casting this, drawing 2 cards and not putting any lands into play? Because 4 mana to draw 2 cards is terrible. That's not a good rate at all. You can do better. In green and blue, you can do it. Like, if this is a white card, it'd be like, yeah, that's okay. Green and this is Simic. The best cards for drawing and putting lands into play and whatnot. That seems bad to me. That doesn't seem very good at all. So maybe reevaluate that one. And I will end with this row here because there's a lot to talk about. Vanishing Verse, as I already, like, I can't believe why is this not more popular? Am I missing something here? Seems really good. I mean, Strixhaven is not in Standard anymore. Has it rotated out? I haven't played Standard in forever. It rotates after a year, doesn't it? So it has been a year. So this is rotating out. So if after this rotates out of Standard, the price should go way down, right? That's typically how it works because it won't be Standard legal anymore, and all the Standard players will be selling off their Vanishing Verses. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't played Standard in a long time. I think it's a year, isn't it? Right? So anyway, I still though, even with the cost being a little bit higher, like 350 is not too bad. I'm shocked that this isn't more popular. This is one of the best removal spells in the format. Can I go that far? This might be in my top 10. Like, I think it's probably better than D-Spark. I would play this over D-Spark. So I'm shocked this isn't more popular. Blade Historian. We all know where that's going, right? Every Boros deck where you're attacking creatures you control have double strike. So not much to talk about there. I can't remember if I mentioned this in my video or not. I knew it was going to see play, obviously, but because it's so one-dimensional, I wasn't sure if it was worth a mention. Thrilling Discovery is definitely one that I didn't mention and maybe should have. Again, just like with Expressive Iteration, it is kind of a, like, the only thing about these cards, just like with Eureka Moment, just like Brainstorm, all those cards are just so low impact that to me, I can't find room for them. I'm not going to find room. I'm not going to take out something really synergistic and great, even though this is a good card. Expressive Iteration, I like it. That's good value. Just that's not good enough to put in it. That's not good enough to take up a space in my deck. There's so many great cards to choose from that I'm not going to take up a space for a card that is going to draw me 1 card, maybe 2. Same with Thrilling Discovery. I would put this in a discard theme. That's it. That is all. If I was in a Boros discard deck where I'm cycling, or maybe I'm doing a recursion theme and I want stuff in my graveyard, which there can't be very many Boros decks like that. Like, you gain 2 life. Okay, that's nice. Incredibly low impact in a commander game, like almost nothing. Like that's literal nothing in a commander game. Unless you're, again, so now are we in a life gain theme in Boros, again, which is not very popular. Then you may discard 2 cards. If you do, draw 3 cards. So you're gaining a card, which is good. It's Cathartic Reunion, right? Essentially, but also with gain 2 life. So I guess it is a better Cathartic Reunion. Yeah. But again, where are you playing Cathartic Reunion? You're playing it in a discard theme, right? And because Cathartic Reunion is mono red, it's going to go in a lot more decks. Like it goes in my mono red Bralin deck, which this is obviously not going to go in. So for me, I'm like, yeah, you get to gain the 2 life, but it's also Boros, so it only goes in very specific decks, right? I'm wondering where people are playing this. I actually did I not have a patron that had this in one of their decks recently? I think they did, but it was a discard theme, so it was a good fit. I believe, if I could remember correctly. It seems good. I think people are like, oh, like at the end of the day, you're drawing 1 card and you gain 2 life. That's not super good, right? It's very low impact. In fact, because Thrilling Discovery, again, I have 5 cards in hand. I cast my Thrilling Discovery. I have 4 cards in hand. I discard 2 cards. I have 2 cards in hand. I draw 3 cards. I have 5 cards in hand. You are up 0 cards, right? Keep that in mind, guys. You do not, there's 0 card advantage off a Thrilling Discovery. You gain 2 life. Is that important to your deck? Yes or no? Probably not, because you're probably not in a Boros life gain deck. And gaining 2 life in a commander game is almost meaningless. Are you in a discard theme? If you're in a discard theme, great. Or maybe in a draw theme. Again, these are not popular themes in Boros, so I don't know. 7,000's kind of a lot, so I don't know how many decks this is going in. But again, this to me just feels like one of those ones, like Village Rites is another one where it's like, okay, if I really want to be sacrificing creatures, it seems good, but drawing 2 cards, sacrificing a creature to draw 2 cards is not super good, right? So this might be in a lot more decks than it should be. Baleful Mastery, that's about where I thought it would be. And I got a lot of flack for not mentioning this on my best removal of the year. Yeah, I think I probably should have gave it a mention. There was so much to mention though. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to fit in different colors. I didn't want it to be like all 2 or 3 colors. I wanted all the colors to get a representation, and I wanted different kinds of removal, not just all creature removal and stuff. And Spectral Deluge in particular was one that I thought had to get a mention because I just thought it was great. And there's just so much fantastic removal last year that Baleful Mastery sort of got bumped off the list. Maybe I should have gave it a mention because it is really good. Possible 2 mana. And by the way, I love that they did this in the set. You may pay this rather than pay its cost. And if you did, you know, an opponent gets to do something. Obviously, they did that for Commander players. Fantastic. Like, I don't know if people play this in Standard or in Modern because letting your opponent draw a card there seems not great. Could be still. 15,000 decks. It's definitely getting played, no question. And I am going to end off with Wandering Archaic, which was my top card from the set. And when I saw it, I was like, that goes in every deck, right? Clearly it's not, because it's only in 4% of decks. And for me, like, you could put this in any deck. You could put this in any deck, no question. It's fantastic value. It's a card that's just going to sit there. Your opponents aren't going to pay for the 2. And again, I'm listening to people talk about when this card first came out, well, your opponents will just pay the 2, so it's not very good. What? Like, ever heard of Rhystic Study or Smothering Tithe? They're not going to pay the 2. They're not going to pay the 2. They're not, and they don't. I've played this card, and my opponent, I don't know, they might have once, like almost never, like 90% of the time they're not paying. So I'm just getting free value. And yes, sometimes that value is not something I need. Like, they'll cast a spell that isn't going to help me at all. Like giving a creature haste or something. It does nothing for me when it's not my turn, obviously. So, but a lot of times it can be just great value. Like my opponent casts Equidama's Reach. And I play, for me, again, like I talked about in that video, I'm not going to put Wandering Archaic in every single deck, even though I could. I'm going to put it in the decks where I think it will be the most helpful. For example, again, my Bralin deck. A mono red deck, I think Wandering Archaic is fantastic for 2 reasons. Because mono red is very limited on what they can do. And again, you can get lucky sometimes and hit that Kodama's Reach. So now you get to ramp. Or you can hit that enchantment removal spell, right? That Krosan Grip or that whatever. And now you can remove your opponent's enchantment that you want to get off the table. The other interesting way, and I don't know who uses the backside. Probably no one. I just thought this was the weirdest thing in the world to even put a backside on this card. I don't know why they did. Also, the fact that it's a colorless sorcery is kind of weird too, but I won't get into that. The other thing about this card is you can use it in a political way where your opponents will let you copy the spell. So again, you have a Krosan Grip, or your opponent has a Krosan Grip, and they're like, hey, I'm going to get rid of that Rhystic Study, and I'll let you copy it if you get rid of the Smothering Tithe. And so there's those situations too. Just a phenomenal card in a Commander game, I think. And I mean, 30,000 is a lot for sure. It is a lot, no question. I'm surprised it's not a little more popular. Again, let's look, and I don't know if there's any cards. Oh yeah, Stormkiln Artist is in 40,000. Not sure about that. I mean, Fracture is in 23,000. Now Fracture is looking like what? 23,000? It's almost as many as Wandering Archaic, and Wandering Archaic can go in any deck. So that's really surprising how popular that is. I mean, it's popular. 30,000 is a lot, but I thought we're looking at like 50, 60, one of the most popular cards in the format. Again, since I'm ending this video, we'll just go check out the top cards from the entire format. And, you know, you look at it, the colorless cards that can go in any deck, like Sol Ring's in 926,000, almost a million. That's a lot more than 30,000, right? And of course, that's not a great comparison. But let's find a card that is actually, obviously the Signets can only go in certain decks. Lightning Greaves, there we go. There's the first non-mana rock colorless card. That's in 308,000 decks. So 10 times as many as Wandering Archaic. So, you know, that's a card you're going to see a lot. Like Swiftfoot Boots, 280,000. And I'm not saying that Wandering Archaic should be in that many, but just to give you a comparison of how popular cards can be and obviously those cards have also been around for a lot longer. But Wandering Archaic, yeah, I thought it would be a little more popular, to be quite honest. Anyway, that is it. That is all. My Strixhaven retrospective. I was trying to talk quickly because I thought I would maybe run really, really long there. But again, it was about an hour, so that's good. A really popular set in the format, for no question. You see the Commanders all the time. You see the cards in the 99 all the time. I thought that C21 overall, maybe the Commanders, I didn't like the 99 from C21. There was a few really good staples in there, but the actual 99 staples in the format, I thought the Strixhaven was way better for that. And then like with the Vanishing Verses and the Stormkiln Artist and the Wandering Archaic, those are, you know, Solve the Equation. Those are cards we're going to see in the format for a long, long time for sure. I think the Commanders, though, the Commanders are great also, but I thought the C21 Commanders were just a little bit better, you know, as they should be. It's a Commander set, right? But the 99 cards were a lot better in Strixhaven. So obviously that is the case here. But that is all. What do you guys think? Did everything sort of fall out the way you expected, whether it be the Commanders or the 99 cards? Is anyone else as shocked as me that Fracture is such a popular card? I mean, I knew it would be good, but that popular? Way more popular than Vanishing Verse. That's probably the most shocking thing I've seen today, I think. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.